Kate Hubley. Welcome to the podcast.
Why, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So it's a great pleasure to have you. You're joining me from Montreal, where you are a jewelry designer. You also own a company, Kate Jewellery, K8
Mhm.
Jewelry. So I have a bazillion questions because I am learning a lot about rocks now, rocks and minerals, but I don't know a whole lot about gems and shiny things that you put in jewelry, which is really cool. I'm going to ask you the obvious question, which is, how the heck did you get into this?
Well, I've always been because my first career is in advertising. I'm a copywriter, but I have done from the day I started university in Halifax, way back when I was going to NASCAD, taking night classes in jewelry. So I've always done them side by side. And at one point in my advertising career, I said, you know what? I'm not enjoying this, and my heart belongs to something else. So I decided I would invest most of my energy in my jewelry career, but I wanted to elevate it. I didn't want to do artisanal silver crafty things. I wanted to go more high end. And the more you learn in this industry, the more you want to learn. And so then I got excited about gems and realized how much I did not know. And it's like, oh, well, if I want to go and talk to a client about sapphires, I better know that they're not just blue and that they come from this place, that place, and the other place, and what to look for and what makes a good quality gem versus a less desirable one. So I went to school. It's a sciencey too. It's very, and it's also about um, primarily a gemologist is someone who has learned to or gone under instruction, has received the education to identify gem material and distinguish it from another. That's what a gemologist is.
So you are a gemologist as well?
Yeah,
Is there a license for that?
there's a certification. I got mine from the um, the FGA, which is in London, in Great Britain. There's also a GIA certification, and they're heavy duty courses. The one that I took is super sciencey. It's all about light theory and the different how gem material interacts with light. It's mostly that, and that's what helps us define it.
So when it's in the ground, is it considered a gem or is it considered something else? Is it only a gem when it's been refined?
No, really, gem material is anything when it's rare, it's durable, meaning that it can be worn, it can be made, used, and that it's desirable. So I mean, organics are also considered gems, like amber. What are some other organics? Bones, like different ivories, but those are considered gem too. The organics, yeah.
I didn't know
I
that.
know, and
That
they're
is
called
really
the
cool.
organics. So yeah, and
So
organics that come from animal or plant life.
do you work with any organics?
Do I work with any organics? I haven't recently. I've got my little stash of fun gems, and I do have some ambers and stuff. My piano actually is made of Canadian ivory keys, and it's walrus. But my
Ah,
piano's very, very old. Like now, if you want to harvest walrus tusks, you have to be, I guess Inuit or First Nations.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be allowed to harvest it now.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
different rules, and what's fun about amber is that that's something you can actually find in nature, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's something you can go collect if you wanted to.
yeah. I think so. Yeah, I mean, there's lots. Obviously, in the Baltic area, there's a lot of amber. I know when I was in Tanzania, they had they had some amber there, but it's more cobalt. It's a younger amber. Like I would have to get out my notes and find how many millions of years it is. I forget. But then the other kind is less. It's just a couple of million versus a whole bunch of a million years old. I sound so
Okay.
I sound so educated, but it's like a lot of detail when you learn this. My book is like about 4 inches thick, and then there's all the fascicles, all the extra books. We learned a lot. So some of the details, it's been 6 years. Some of the details are a little
Do
distant.
you have like a specialization? Because I know that you have you make jewelry with all sorts of different
Mm.
stones. Are there stones that you prefer to work with? Like that's your thing?
I prefer for me, it's all about the color. So it just depends. It really if I go, I just called it the Sapphire Boutique. I was just with as a friend of mine downtown who's a gem hunter, gemologist, and she is a very big provider of beautiful stones here in Montreal. And we just talked about how you go towards the color. It's the color that speaks to you. So it's not necessarily the material, the kind. Like, is it a tanzanite, a sapphire, a diamond, tourmaline? It's the color. And so you're going to get drawn in by the color and the way the light plays off of it and the magic it has. And you fall in love with them. You literally fall in love with it, and you say, I can't stop thinking about this gemstone. I must have." So that's it's not it yeah, so it's a color. And then
Okay, so then how do you okay, so you're attracted like you said to a specific color. How do you like get them? Like where do you get them?
well, gemstones are found all over the world. Canada has some gemstones. Canada is the third largest gem diamond producer in the world. Gem quality diamond producer in the world, after Botswana and Russia. And so they're everywhere. We have garnets here. We have something called amylite, which is also it's found in Banff. It's sort of this fossilized shell, and it's like a rainbow, a golden rainbow. I don't know. Have you seen amylite before?
No.
It's found up in Banff, in that area. So in the United States, they have there's more Montana sapphires are really big. They have tourmalines, and then there's all over Sri Lanka, big sapphire places, Madagascar, Mozambique. Emeralds in Ethiopia, as well as opals and emeralds in Colombia and Brazil. You name it. There's Brazil has a lot of gemstones. They have topaz. They have everything. Honestly, they have so much there. And then tourmaline is found in many places as well. Tanzanite,
So
Tanzania.
so how does it work then? So let's say you want to work with a sapphire.
Right.
You're like I kind of feel like the next piece needs to have some
Mhm.
sapphire in it. Do you look at a catalog? Do you look online? How do you buy the stone that you're looking for?
Well, so there are a few places I would go to here first. Um, to look like where I was, like it literally, it's about 400 square feet of gemstones, all in showcases. I mean, they have the big safe and stuff, and you, I can take a look there. I also have a network all over the world, from Australia to Sri Lanka to Afghanistan, to the United States to Montreal, you name it. I think I even have a dealer in Sweden who sometimes posts, "Oh, I got these," and I was like, "Oh, I must have those." So they're from all over, and sometimes I can just put out the word, "I have a client looking for," and we'll see what comes back. And some will lend them out. That we call it on memo. So they send them in, and you have to be insured and everything else. And so I can look at them, and then if I want it, I will buy it or send it back.
Wow, so it's really involved.
It
Like
is,
it must
yeah.
take like weeks sometimes for this process to happen.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, sometimes you'll go in and say, "There, I found it. What a beautiful stone," or like I even can phone here in Montreal at my friend Benny's place, Pierre de Cham, it's called, and I will say, "I have a client." Like I had one who was looking for a 4 carat emerald, and she goes in her safe and she takes pictures and sends them to me with the prices, and then I'll look and I said, "You know what? I'm going to come in and take a look at them in person." And then, first I run it by the client to see if it's in the price range. And then I'll go and take a look. And if I want to, I can take them and present them. It's cool.
Wow,
Right? It's like
it's really
brand.
I was actually in my head while you were saying that, I was like, "Wow, you get to, like, handle different things that the average person doesn't get to even see in person."
Yeah, and it's high security too. The buildings where these places are, there's security on the ground floor. There's security at every level, at every door. There's cameras. It's yeah, and you have to be more or less in the trade to
Mhm.
get access to it. Which is good because then when you come to me, I can always I because I'm a gemologist and I know what I'm talking about and what to look for, it's safer for the client to get what they think they're buying, like not
Yeah.
versus buying on Etsy or something.
Have you ever run across a gem that got sent to you in the mail and you wanted to look at it and you found out it was not even the gem that they said it was gonna be? Like, do you run into fakes?
I haven't necessarily myself like that, but I was just earlier we were talking about a friend, the same friend who is in, I think she said Sri Lanka. And he said, come look, I have this beautiful green sapphire. And so she's like, hmm, because heft is the first thing. I don't know. Every kind of stone has a different density. And one of the first tests we do is the heft, to poids dans la main in French. And just to see, that feels light, that feels heavy. Like if you put a diamond in one hand and a fluorite in another, you're going to see that there's a difference in the heft. So she was doing this and she said, it feels a little heavy. Are you sure that's not a cubic zirconia? You know? And he's like, no, no, no. And she said, oh, well, hold on. And she pulls out, it's a little spectroscope and it's a little tiny instrument that you look through with light in it. It takes the light and what happens when light goes through the stone, it will separate the light, the ray, into its spectral colors according to its chemical composition. And we have there's like these sort of narrow, long strips, and the rainbow is there, the seven colors, and there's lines and different widths and breaks depending on the stone. And when he saw her pull that out, he's like, "Oh no, wait a minute, I made a mistake. It's this one." So when you know what you're talking about, but if you were, you know what, I was just I just saw online in one of my groups. He said, "Okay, it just happened to me. Lifetime gem dealer. I just bought 300 carats worth of fake tourmaline."
No.
Yeah, I said, "First time in my career." So you gotta buyer beware, even the professionals. And sometimes the buying online, you have to. If a gemologist who knows their stuff is getting, it can be ripped off, then a consumer can be too. But the thing is, the gemologist or the specialist in the trade is certainly going to be able to identify it once the goods arrive. Not
Wow.
always.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal, and like you mentioned earlier, it's better than buying it on eBay or Etsy or whatever, to deal with an actual jeweler or gemologist. What are some of the things that people should look out for, even when dealing with a professional? Like, how do you know that person's a professional?
Wow. Well, first of all, there's a bit of your gut. Your gut has to tell you. And I think when someone is really transparent, you're going to be more reassured. If you get, "Oh, don't worry about it," or "Yeah, yeah, yeah," or dodging the question or not necessarily having answers to your questions, I think how long they've been in business, or do they belong to any associations? A little Google doesn't hurt.
Mhm.
Um, because not everyone, like the mall jewelry stores, they hire salespeople. They don't hire experts.
Mhm.
I don't mean to
Right.
be critical. I apologize if I'm hurting anyone's feelings, but that's just a general rule. Whereas someone who's specialized maybe might open their own establishment, and you kind of get a feel. You can kind of tell. And
Yeah.
diamonds, especially now, because there's so many lab grown diamonds, and it looks, they've been around for a long time, but they're really taking off because of this the whole conversation around ethical diamonds. And but the value is going down on them, and rather quickly. So they're infiltrating, and you have to, for me, I have to have faith in my suppliers, and also be able to identify any kind of suspicious behavior. I don't have the full um, setup to test whether or not a diamond is natural or synthetic or lab made. But I certainly can tell you, often I can look at a diamond just by the inclusions and stuff. I know, okay, that's a real one. Whereas the inclusions of a lab grown diamond might be different. But it doesn't mean I'm reliable for that. You would send that to GIA in the States for an evaluation. They have the big
Okay.
machines to test.
Right.
It's not, yeah. So
So
that,
these synthetics are very interesting. It seems to me I have heard about them. I've heard that
Mhm.
they are kind of a newish thing. Is it worth buying? Is it something that some clients prefer? They just want synthetic?
um, well, you know what? I bet you if you told someone who grows diamonds in the lab that they were synthetic, I think they would get mad at you.
Oh, okay, lab grown then.
No, but I don't care. I don't have a preference. Um, People are really concerned these days, one with the ethics of diamonds. Um, but I think but that's a lot of marketing, and it is so different now than it was in the 70s. And, we have the Kimberley process, which is that, you're not allowed to take a rough gemstone out of the country without paperwork. So you can't, this whole idea of smuggling diamonds in your pockets and running over borders, I'm sure it does happen. It does happen, but it's not as prevalent as it would make you think. Like, I think it's 98 point something percent of diamonds are, come with the certificates. Like, I don't want to get into, because it's complicated. I don't, hold on. If I say it's complicated, then it sounds like I'm
Oh,
dodging it.
I think complicated is a fair word because it is
Yeah,
political, it is ethical,
exactly.
there's health and all these other the bureaucracy,
Yeah.
so it's fair to say it's complicated.
Yeah, and yet by the same token, I believe I know the figure for the color gemstone industry is that there are 100 million people around the world working in the color gemstone industry.
Wow.
And so that's a lot of families, that's a lot of communities. And I think it's not 100 million for diamonds, but it's certainly countless millions of people working in the diamond industry, bringing home money to their families, and nurturing their communities, and helping different environments thrive. Like here in Canada up north, yeah, it's a big pit in the there we go. There's a big giant crater in the north, but the money is being helped, it's sent to, provided to the local communities for different efforts to help, to support them. I don't like saying help. It sounds like so um paternalistic, but they have programs that kind of uh, offer opportunities for the local communities to thrive better,
Yeah.
thanks to the revenues generated by the mines.
Yeah, and I think the main concerns are maybe not as much in the Canadian mining
Mm,
industry. I think the Canadian mining industry is very different from, let's say, in a third world country or
mhm,
in Africa or somewhere else. And I think like you said, like in the past, there were problems with like slavery and all
mhm.
these things that just like were absolutely atrocious, which I think generated. Um, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what made it so that now there's more regulations.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it had to be there. They were like in Angola and the Congo, like financing rebels. Some of which, when we hear rebels, maybe it's like a revolution, and that's a good thing. But these rebels were not so hot. They were pretty bad. It was pretty terrifying. But just to get back to your point, Botswana is the number one producer of diamonds in the world, and Botswana is a stable country. It relies on the diamond industry to treasure fund its coffers, like,
Okay.
for taxation and the communities there, they live off this, and there's a lot of, like, they collect it off the shore. It's, like, not even inland, it's on the shore because that's just where they
Wow.
yeah, so
Are there any countries that you wouldn't do business with?
I you know what? I'm gonna say something. I'm a little bit nervous because there's a lot of beautiful, beautiful, beautiful emeralds in Afghanistan.
Mhm.
So even with the events of last week, where that girls' school was bombed, I think I may be getting my facts slightly off, but there were a lot of young girls killed and wounded, presumably by the Taliban. I wonder when the Americans leave, and they're starting now, if there's going to be any of that kind of funding of groups like the Taliban through things like
Ah.
emerald emerald sales. I don't know how, like, I don't know enough, but it was the first question I asked myself when I heard that they're pulling out.
That's a
And I
good
don't know.
question. So there's a lot of things to consider. You're not just making rings and jewelry. You're considering everything from the ethics of what you're buying to, like the value changes. You need to keep an eye on let's talk about that for a second here. The changes of value.
Well,
Are there any gemstones, let's say in the last, let's say 5 years, that have really dramatically gone up in value?
up in value. Well, the Argyle in Australia, the Argyle mine that provides pink diamonds is quite quickly coming to the end of its lifespan. And so pink diamonds, it's kind of like, oh, do you want a beautiful car for your birthday or do you want a pink diamond?
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and a fancy car at that. It's like I was looking at some of us would be happy with a house for the same amount that diamond goes for. So that mine is yeah, it's almost at the end of its lifespan for pink diamonds. They're rare, and so they're coveted. Yeah.
That's really amazing.
Hmm.
And so I heard that new gems are kind of like not being created. I don't know. I guess there's like new gems discovered sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's lots of minerals and gem material. Some can and cannot be used in jewelry, or they're not as beautiful. Maybe they have some intrigue. And it really all depends on how they're designed. But a lot of them are cool finds that don't necessarily make their way into jewelry.
Okay.
There's a really neat one called Eudialyte. It's found like in Finland, and we also have some in Abitibi, Temiskaming. And it's a really cool polycrystalline, which means it's made up of lots of tiny, tiny crystals that come together to form a larger piece. And this one is kind of, I call it roses after frost because I'm romantic that way. But it's got this reddy layer and a bit of pink, a little bit of silver, and it has this dots. This kind of, it almost looks like a pearl shell a little bit, and um, with some black, and it's iridescent and it's semi-translucent and it's very cool. Now I have a few pieces, but it's hard to get now. So it's also when these minerals or this gem material comes to market, it's like, can they mine enough and cut it and make it into a shape interestingly enough and market it enough to sell enough to sustain whatever company's doing it.
Right.
So it's that whole circle. And then, is there enough? If I get people hooked on it, do we have enough? And can this be a sustainable business? Oh,
Wow. That's really amazing.
it's cool, huh?
Yeah, it's really cool. What about things like gold? So one of the things I know, like when I'm browsing through a jewelry website,
Mhm.
there's all kinds of different kinds of gold. Like there's like white gold, and then there's like I don't know whatever gold, and then obviously your silvers and your I think platinum.
Mhm.
I don't know what are the different kinds of metals. Which ones are more valuable? Which ones are more practical?
Well, okay, here's a little story. Way back after the war, around that time, white gold became very popular because it was way less expensive than platinum. And it's white, like platinum, and platinum rings were more, desirable, or people liked them. They were more if fashion or on trend. So they came up with white gold by putting either nickel and or palladium. Now in Europe, you're not allowed to sell nickel white gold. It has to be palladium white gold, which is a little bit more expensive, So, but now platinum is less expensive
Huh.
than gold. Yeah. So
And
gold is really
so
expensive right now.
Yeah, that's really curious. I actually did not know that white gold, at least in Canada, had nickel in it.
Right, and that's why people say I'm allergic. I'm
Yeah.
allergic to the white gold, it's the nickel, but not everyone is. It's like a small percentage, I don't know. I don't wanna make up numbers, but some people get a reaction to it and some people don't, so you use palladium. But in Europe, you're not really allowed to use it, I think.
So in order of value then, would it be, gold, like pure gold would be the most valuable?
Right now, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and,
okay.
um, and then, platinum, and then silver, and then your coppers, brass, whatever. So the way, so what is yellow gold? Well, yellow gold, all gold they're carats, right, with a K, Karats. So the carat is the amount of gold in. Okay, hold on. If you break it down to 24. 9 carat, which is often what they use in the UK, would be 9 out of 24 parts. 10 carat is
Okay.
10 out of 24 parts. 18, and then 24 carat gold is 24 out of 24 parts.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how that works. That's what that means. So then, if you do your calculations, you realize that 18 carat gold is 75% gold, and then the rest is alloy. 14 karat is 538, I believe, 538%. So that would be a little over half of the material that you get in 14 is gold, and the rest is alloy, and so on and so on.
Hold on, what is alloy?
Alloy is the other metals that they mix it with under heat and mix it up, give it a good stir, and the outcome is the carat gold. So 18 carat. Like depending on where you are in the world, the formula or the recipes might be a little bit different, but usually yellow gold is a little bit of silver. So
Okay.
they add a bit of silver. I d- I don't exactly have the exact formulas, but there might be some zinc or copper in there too, depending. And I don't want to talk out of school because metallurgy, I've taken a lot of classes, but the exact formulas, like you got to memorize this stuff.
Yeah,
Then
and I don't expect you to know all the numbers, it's okay.
pop quiz, Kate. And so that's yellow gold. You have white gold, which I said is palladium and or nickel, and you have rose gold or pink gold, and that the main alloy would be copper.
Okay,
And then green gold, I think the main would be brass.
interesting.
So it's just a bit. It's just kind of a hint of green, just to differentiate it from yellow. So if you saw the two together, you probably wouldn't say. I mean, if you saw green gold alone, you wouldn't say, "Hey, that's green." But if you put it beside yellow, you're going, "Yeah, it's a little green." So
Huh.
yeah, that's so. It's all about the alloys, and alloys are the extra components that you mix with the metals to bring to for your final metal carat.
And
We'll
what determines, I guess, when you were speaking about the is it the rose diamond in Australia?
Mhm.
What determines other than scarcity? Because in that case, I would imagine it's scarcity that determines its value. For the other gemstones, like, how do you h how do they determine if a ruby is more expensive than a sapphire or more expensive than a topaz or a diamond is the most expensive? Like, how does that work? Do you know?
Topaz is abundant. Topaz, you can find it anywhere, and it can be treated to get those colors. Like it can be treated. It's treated to get that blue. So you have nice standard blues. There's like three different blues: a London blue, Swiss blue.
Oh,
Um,
so they're treated
they're
to
treated.
have different shades.
Yeah, and they can be a pink,
Oh.
a bubblegum pink. So, and then you have that kind of brownie, smoky topazy. I don't think we call it smoky. I think that's like a lay term. But if I say smoky topaz, you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about. That kind of
totally.
yeah. And so, and that's the natural, and it can be colorless as well. So yeah.
Huh.
So it's super abundant. It's found everywhere. Rubies, you're going after the color and the size. The color, the size, and the clarity. The clarity is that when you look at it, you know, even with the naked eye or under a loop, which is the little magnifier that you see jewelers use, the little monocle, with less, like fewer inclusions, that it really catches the light and sends the light back up to the viewer. So all those factors contribute to the rarity. Like you can get a nice, cute little pinky ruby, and it's really sweet. And then you have a beautiful pigeon blood ruby that's big and gorgeous. And you think, oh, isn't that cute? And you're like, oh my God. So, when you look at the pigeon blood, so the pigeon blood is a color of ruby. It's associated with the Myanmar. And so, yeah, when you look at them, if you compare, you're going to know that one's more than the other, and it's those factors. So the
Okay.
rarity, the color, the way the light returns and reflects back up to you, the number of inclusions, how clean it is.
And
Yeah,
what about sapphires?
same thing.
Same thing, and same thing with emeralds, I would assume?
Oh yeah, actually, emeralds. It's also the origin. Emeralds as well. The Colombian are worth a little bit more than the Brazilian. It's
Why?
the lore. It's the lore.
Oh,
They've been mining those emeralds for so long, and they have specific the Colombian inclusions have these really funny inclusions. So picture this: you have a stone, and in the stone there's a cavity. Okay, it's got air in it, and then you have a liquid and a crystal in the air. So that's called a three phase cavity, three
wow.
phase inclusion. I'm really hoping I have all these facts because we're talking about stuff that's like a little bit in the past because I don't talk about gemstones that much. I'm more designing with the gemstones that I forget. But yeah,
Well,
they
I mean, you know more than the average person. That's why I asked these questions because we're gonna get to the designing part, but I wanted to talk about the gemstones because all of these
yeah,
things really inform the consumer, right? I mean,
yeah,
this is really important to talk about because, when you're looking for a ring or a new necklace or a new pair of earrings, and again, you hit a jewelry site and you're like, "Meh, I don't know. I mean,
I
this looks
know.
pretty, but I mean, is it valuable? I mean, you can see the price tag sometimes. Sometimes they don't
Mm,
show the price tag.
yeah.
So all of these things inform the consumer. So the last thing I do want to talk about before we talk about
Mhm.
design is pearls. Now,
Yes,
I don't know if you work with pearls. Do you?
I work with pearls.
Yeah.
Yes, matter of fact, last year I won no, I came second in a pearl design
Yes.
competition. I Yeah, I've started working with pearls a lot actually. I'm quite proud
Okay.
of them. Yeah.
They're beautiful. They're probably my favorite are
Really?
pearls. So where do you get your pearls? Which ones are your favorites?
Okay. So again, I have someone here in Montreal who I find her selection is fantastic, and she deals with a lot of people. They come from Asia, obviously. A lot come from China because there's very okay, so cultured pearls are the ones that human beings grow. Natural pearls are the ones that are found in nature unassisted. They're all gone. There are very few. There are very few natural pearls, like the oyster pearls, that
Mhm.
romance. There's very few, and you gotta open up a shuck a lot of oysters to find that pearl. And they were depleted. I think. Did you watch? Do you get Gem TV from the CBC? Do you
No, no.
subscribe to that? There's what's his name? So that guy who played in that movie. Um, One of the big American actors, black, very elegant man. He hosts this show called Slavery, and he traveled. He found his people where he came from, where his ancestors came from, and visited back. And he was taken to a park that is all like, as far as the eye can see, oysters.
Whoa.
And it was from where they were waiting, the people were waiting, and that's all they had to eat,
Wow.
waiting for the ships to come and take them over here, or,
Mhm.
the slave ships. So, I mean, it just goes to show you, um, I don't know if that's
Did they when they ate the oysters, did they, like, take pearls, do you know?
I have no idea. They
I'm
didn't
curious
talk
now.
about that. I'd be curious now too. They were
Mhm.
probably stripped of anything of value. I'm sure they didn't go on the ship with a pocket full of pearls.
No, but I was gonna say maybe they took that,
Well,
maybe
I would
the
imagine that they
the
were pearls.
colonizers and all that, yeah.
Exactly. I would
But
imagine.
there's a lot, I mean, it's funny actually because I talked to an oyster, microbiologist on a different episode
Mm,
who studies the effects of pollution on oysters, so that's
yeah.
another thing that's kind of, a problem. But there are, I mean, Canadian pearls, aren't there? Like Canadian pearls or like maybe I was ripped off, but I bought a necklace piece that had a Quebec pearl, I was told. So I I don't
But
know.
but that might be from, pearling, because there are oysters here, and so
Mhm.
maybe every now and then they find, like in Hawaii, apparently you can go and get an oyster and it'll have a pearl in it, but it's not.
It's not a jam.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is
Yeah.
because it's pretty, but I don't know how that works, and I have a feeling, are they still cultured though, or are they naturally found out in the water?
Oh, that's
There's
interesting.
a
I don't know.
difference.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's true. Yeah, I guess it's a question I didn't ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so but I'll give you I grew up in the Maritimes, and, my great aunt Bertha lived in Cape Breton,
Mhm.
and she when she found out I was doing jewelry, she's not with us anymore. She said, "Here," and they call me Kathy, right? They say, "Give this to Kathy." And I opened it, and it was all the tiny little pearls that they had collected from clams, oysters, and
Oh,
mussels through their whole life together by the sea. And I
wow.
have these little things. So they're not beautiful. They're a little wonky and they're a little gray, but, yeah, so it's hard to find a natural. You have to eat a lot of oysters to find a pearl.
Right. Yeah,
So
and by a beautiful natural pearl, you mean one that's round and it has, like, the good colors and
yeah, and the luster, the iridescence
yeah.
and stuff like that. So I don't know, but they could very well be, but they might be cultured. Like, I have
Okay.
a feeling they're cultured oysters that we get, like, from Malpec, or the Soleil, what are the French ones, the Quebec ones called?
I don't know. I'm in Ottawa now, so it's like I've lost all my Montreal knowledge.
Yeah, the Soleil.
Let's talk about
Those are the
designing because we have
yeah,
about 20 minutes left, and I
yeah.
definitely want to talk about
Mhm,
designing. You work in, you're kind of, I mean, you are an artist. You work in series, I find. You
mhm,
have various collections.
mhm.
You have partnered up with other artists. You have worked on your own work. How do you come up with an idea for a series?
Okay, I re what happens often with me, um, one thing, maybe I see a gemstone and I have to make something, duh,
Mhm.
that's a given. But also what I find is I I'll give you a story after, it'll make you laugh. what happens to all of my designs are based on this kind of idea that we go through life and we go through all the struggles, but we come out a superstar. I really believe that, and I think that the pieces that I create are really celebrating that kind of ability to go in and find that strength that'll push you through and you come out better. What doesn't kill you will make you stronger, kind of thing. But
Mhm.
like a little bit of the fearlessness to tap into your own power and fearlessness. So I have things called precious time. Would you like to know the funny story about this?
Sure.
Yeah. So I had a friend who was he's very flamboyant, and he was doing some kind of horror movies, and he went to the Cannes festival, and on the way home from the festival he was with his friends and they were bugging him, and he said, no, um, I don't bother me, I'm designing for Kate. Okay. Now what did he come with? Guillotines, bear claws, the pity pendulum. I don't know if you know what the pity pendulum is.
Yes.
all this all these torture ideas for jewelry, and I'm like, oh, thank you, that's so sweet, but no. It's a big risk.
Uh-huh.
But then I went through a divorce, and it was like a toughie. It was, I think we actually met around then, and it was
Yes, we
a
did.
tough one. And I always like, you know what, that freaking pendulum, it swings both ways, my dear. And I was like a little angry, and then I started to think about the pendulum. And what actually, when we say it swings both ways, does that mean it goes up and it goes down, or does that mean the pendulum, the pity pendulum, that'll come back and swing and it'll go deeper and deeper with every cut? So all of this imagery came together for me, and what I realized is eventually a pendulum, yes, it swings up and down, and that's what gives us our experiences and makes us who we are. But there's a moment where that pendulum comes to a stop in the center, and that's where we find calm. And that's the idea behind this collection.
Oh, I never knew that. I mean, I've seen the work that you've done. I've
Mhm.
seen the shape, which is very unique in
Mhm.
the jewelry world.
Mhm.
And I never knew that that was the actual origin of it. That's very fascinating.
Yeah, so that's why I call it precious time, because time, and I don't know. I find that I've been looking really at the what time is and how it my notion of it has shifted so much over the years, and especially now, since that time that I was talking about, time is so different now for me. Before it was like, I only have so much time, have to do this. I'm halfway through my life. Oh, I wasted all that time. What a waste of, this was, and I've like, no, this is what I did then. And now I'm doing this. And time is expansive, and it is what we do with it. Like, I don't, like, if my kid says I'm bored, it's like, you, you're not allowed to be bored. Go find, like, don't, it's not about wasting time, but allow that time to become sort of a place where your mind can go, and it's sort of three-dimensional. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, it makes sense. I'm a big fan of, boredom, without calling it boredom, but, like,
Mm.
just time to just, like, sit still for a minute
Yes.
even.
Yeah.
That's important because everything around you informs your next thought and informs your whatever. Like, get off your phone, just sit still for a minute, and I think that also informs, your inspirations, your dreams, your goals. Um, are you working on a new series now?
Well, I'm expanding the Precious Time collection, actually, and I'm gonna
Okay.
be doing a lot more of watch me make it.
Mm.
I don't do a lot of, like, I'm a little bit insular, especially this year. I've become the quintessential, "Oh, did I dress today?" And, "No, what are you doing phoning me FaceTime? I wanna call. This is not good." I'm not presentable, believe me, but, um, uh, so I'm expanding that, but bringing in, less of the pendulum idea and more of the minute hand. And because especially this year, people are very upset with the time that they lost.
Yeah,
And yet others are like, oh man, that's all I wanted. A year without having to be accountable to anyone except myself.
yeah.
So, and I see the kids. I have a teenager turning 17, graduating from high school this year. And there's that, you see the kids and they're upset, like they feel like they can't get the time back, but they've been doing things without even realizing. They've been nurturing other things. So I thought I'd work on that collection, but instead of the pendulum, it'll be the minute hand.
Very cool. And so you've been established as a business for how long?
Okay. So as I told you, I was in advertising and I gave it up a few years ago, but I always did quite a bit on the side anyway. I would say it's been under 2 years that I've done 100%. Actually, since the pandemic, 100% without other contracts, just jewelry, it's been a year and a half. But it took up most of my obsession, but I can't say it generated most of my revenues.
Yeah.
Advertising is well paying, and sometimes the gig comes along, he's like, "Oh, it's fun. I like the team, and I like the number of hours and the price, so I'll do that." So,
Yeah.
uh
A lot of the creative people that I know, unless they're like engaged in like unionized work in Hollywood or
yeah,
something, they have something else on the side that
mhm,
brings in money that pays for the freedom to create.
exactly.
That's a big deal, right?
It's a big deal. Yeah, and there's someone once said to me in jewelry, said, "As soon as you sell, you're in business. As
Mhm.
soon as you decide to put a price tag on something, you're in business, and you better figure out how to make it work, or else you're a hobbyist.
Yeah.
Are you a hobbyist or a business person?"
Yeah, I recently interviewed Amber from Australia. She's the owner of a company called Commie's Cupcakes, and she was the same way. She had she quit graphic design and
Yeah.
went into cake design. And at one point, she decided, you know what, I needed to stop being a hobbyist and get into
Mhm.
the businesswoman's shoes. And so, what for you has been the transition from full time work in, or let's say whatever contract work in
Mhm.
advertising, to now full time as a jewelry designer, jewelry business. What kind of things do you think that you've had to make changes? Like, what kind of changes have you had to make?
Oh, it's total mindset. It's really tough, especially when, this learning a jewelry. It's so minute. You're working, oh, it's a tenth of a millimeter off, and you'll go and fix that. It's um, very precise, and you need to if you're going to be high end. And so it's really easy to go and work on crafting, like working on your craft, and not so much on the sales. And sometimes there's this idea that you don't want to be um, pushy.
Mhm.
If you sell it, well, then it's obnoxious. Um, I don't want to bother people. A whole mindset, but you're in business, and it's not a cheap hobby. It's an expensive hobby, and you're making things to make people happy. So it's getting over yourself, and for me, not going and like, oh, I think I'll just perfect this tiny thing that no one does anymore, like, because it's a great place to escape, and getting out there and selling your stuff and being positive about it is it's a feat. It's new to me. I never learned that. Even in advertising, they would come to me and say, "Kate, come up with a catchy slogan." And I would say, "Here's your catchy slogan." And they would take it off and bring it to the client and do all this stuff. I just had to make the thing, right?
Right.
And so they did all the other stuff, the whole presentation to the selling and the this and the billing and the that. And so it's really taken a lot for me to get my mind over it, which is probably why I still have to do some freelance because
Well, I mean, the advantage that you have is that you're a copywriter. You know
yeah,
how to write.
well,
And so knowing how to write is going to make your job, I think, a lot easier to sell your work for the jewelry business, I would
mhm.
imagine.
But yeah, absolutely. I can talk about my work a lot, but I can keep the words that I create talking about my work on my computer, on my desk, my messy desktop. It's getting it out there, right? Like
Yeah.
it's that whole um the whole Excel part of business.
Yes.
That
This is something.
planning and pining and this and that and ooh, it's easy to hide. it's easy to hide in the creative work.
It is, yeah, I recently incorporated so this is my first year in business full time as well,
Right.
so I recently incorporated, and it is all this stuff that, like, yes, I have an accountant, yes, I have a lawyer, but they're not gonna do all the paperwork that I need to give them. So, that stuff alone is a new thing that I never had to do before.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, do you mostly have clients, do you have a lot of do you have custom clients, like people who really want something designed, to their design?
Yeah. So what often for me, what's happening most is people will see something I make and they'll say, "Do you have that with blah blah blah?" For
Mhm.
example, like, "Oh, can you make this in um, yellow gold? Maybe I have it in rose gold or pink gold. Can I have a sapphire? Maybe I have a spinel in there." And so they might add something, or I have a gemstone. I love this design. Can you work with that? Can we remake that design to fit my gemstone? So I get a lot of custom, and and yeah, that's how most of it. But I have my collections, and I sell those as well. But it's really fun when people come to me and they like the kind of work I do, and then they ask me to help them to reinterpret it for them, or
Yeah.
and then it really becomes part of who they are.
And as a Canadian, so you're a former East Coaster living in Quebec, are there any is it a pain to do business in this industry in Canada? Is it great? Is it easy? Are most of your clients in the United States? What's the actual, kind of Canadian perspective on this?
Hmm. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
That's okay.
I'm so
All good.
apologetic. I found out that this is part of my witch's wound, and I'm apologizing. Um, uh, there, the United States has 10 times our population.
Yeah.
They have far much more wealth. That means that, you know, for every 100 people here, we might have one person who has a budget, where if there, it's going to be 10
Mhm.
in terms of, I don't know if my math makes sense, but 10 times. So, and they have bigger industries, so they have more wealth. There are people who are more affluent, the percentage of more affluent people. And Canadians tend to look outside Canada for their prestige.
Yep. It's true. It's true.
Um, they don't. Toronto, a lot of. I was really surprised that the wealthiest Torontonians were at Mar-a-Lago last week. Did you see that?
No, I haven't been following. I don't follow the news as much anymore.
No, it came up because there's someone, I don't know the details, but someone who was elected president of fashion, this or that, was got a family photo with Trump, and the LGBTQ community was a little bit like,
Right.
"What? You're in our Canadian fashion? Like, don't you know who your people are?" Kind of
Right.
thing, right? It feels like they're not, there's this idea that the, buying outside Canada is more prestigious than buying within. I have that sense.
Yeah, I think you see this a lot in the fashion industry. You see it
Mm,
in the arts. You see it as an artist myself, as a visual artist
mhm.
who just decided, screw this, I'm gonna just not sell, and mostly not sell in Canada.
Yeah,
Period. But I think a lot of artists are targeting the American population, just because there is, like you said, more of an I guess more of an eagerness to purchase, and they don't really care if you're in Canada or not. I mean, if they
yeah,
love your work, they love your work,
yeah, exactly.
you
And
know?
the other little thing that can come into play is, like, depending, here you go to Starbucks and a coffee's $5 or
Mhm.
whatever, $4. I don't really go there, but and then in the States, you go to Starbucks and it's $4 American, which equals, $6 Canadian.
Mhm.
So there's that perception as well that, if something's $100 Canadian, when they see and it's converted to American, it's like $78. That's a steal. I'm gonna give me two,
Deal.
So there's that too, the exchange rate. People think in the States think my prices are excellent. I was even told to, boost them up 25%. I said, "I can't do that to my people here. I won't do that. Just bring on more, more American sales from the States." But there is that. There's a lot more affluent people. There's the exchange rate, and there's, yeah, I think there's more willingness to buy. And
Yeah.
I think Montreal, it's a little bit romantic, you know?
Yes, and there is a, there's a reason. I'll tell you about this after we start recording. But there,
Mhm.
I have a little thing with Montreal that I've kept. But anyways, listen, Kate, we're out of time. I
Oh,
just want to wish you all the best. I think
thank
you
you.
deserve this success. I wish you all the best now that you're fully in business. And it's been a pleasure having you on the program.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited. It was really nice. It was fun to babble on and chat about all things sparkly.